Kuna vyote unajua kuhusu decentralization ama devolution?
Hiyo lazima nielezee kwa njia mzuri. Because nimekuambia hiyo uzito ya words ndio ngumu.
Decentralization. Hiyo ni nini?
Decentralization, I think it is taking power to the lower levels, whereby now it can reach people.
Kuna hii mambo ya devolution na decentralization. Umesikia na kuna lolote unajua kuhusu hiyo?
Devolution yenyewe nimesikia na ninajua ni kugawa mamlaka kutoka kwa mtu fulani kugawia wengine ama institution fulani.
Decentralization or devolution, to me it means taking the work or the power, giving the people on the ground the power to manage their own resources.
Kama vile na maneno ya devolution, kama vile kusambaza hii mamlaka ya nguvu ipelekwe huko kwa pashindani.
Decentralization has been adopted as a favored method of governance in many countries around the world. Many of the world's leading economies, as well as developing countries, favor decentralized development to reduce regional imbalances and promote rapid development. And so, what is decentralization?
Ordinarily, when you talk about decentralization, we talk about decentralizing offices. You decentralize a central office to the local areas, to the county councils, to the municipal councils, to the regions, to the provinces. That's decentralizing, offices.
Decentralization is essentially a transfer of power by government from the center to the local level. And the reason government will do that is because they feel that at the local level, if you have local government or local institutions, they can respond more directly to the citizens on the ground. The chain from national to local, the distance is quite far. So in order to bring development closer to the people, a government will opt to decentralize.
There are different types of decentralized systems depending on the powers actually transferred from central government to the local level. Devolution is considered the highest form of decentralized governance and entails the transfer of administrative, financial and political power to local governments or counties.
Devolution is a small connotation with political governance. Devolve. You devolve from the center to the grassroots governance.
The characteristics of a devolved devolution comprise the following. A, providing equal opportunities for all citizens to make decisions concerning development, political organization, social organization, and economic organization of their own regions. That means Kenyans must have opportunities to voice their concerns, opportunities to make decisions without discrimination. The second aspect of a successive devolution is where people have got institutions through which they can make democratic decisions and have those decisions implemented by the government without failure. And the third characteristic, if we can call it a characteristic, then is institutions through which Kenyans choose their own representatives to present their own decisions, to present their own voices on their own behalf, but decisions and voices that concern their own development. I would say that, simply put, a democratic structure of government in which citizens mobilize themselves and in which citizens can be heard, mobilizing their own opinion and mobilizing their own voices. That kind of a system, where there are democratic institutions of governance, then we can say at the regional level, then we can say that's a very successful system of devolution.
Decentralized governance recognizes that it is not efficient for a central government to do everything, and that by transferring some powers to local governance bodies and institutions, budgets can respond more effectively to local needs. Decentralized governance, if well structured, is viewed as a more effective way of promoting social and economic equality.
Local governments worldwide are established for two big reasons. One is to provide a platform for self-governance, so that local people can make decisions that affect the local community and then respond to the local demands and mobilize resources to address those demands. So worldwide, these local governments have been allowed. For example, the state government allows units called local governments with full power, responsibility, and resources to address those local issues.
The Independence Constitution of Kenya provided for devolved government with strong and independent county government, and in 1964 replaced it with the Republican Constitution that provided for strong central government instead.
The 1963 Constitution created a framework within which devolution would work. The question was it allowed to work? Quickly and in a very serious half, the central government realized that they will be losing out on independence of units. So very quickly, between 1963 and 1969, they did away with regionalization. You can call it majimbo if you wish, but it's not the same for me. They dismantled every aspect of what I would call devolution at that juncture.
Despite the strong central government with a powerful executive president, Kenya has made many attempts at decentralization over the years. The Special Rural Development Program, introduced in 1972, can be considered the first clear program designed to promote regional growth in response to the influx of semi-skilled workers into Nairobi City in search of job opportunities and growing unemployment.
Between 1963 and roughly 1974 or thereabout, for 10 years, the economy performed very well in terms of economic growth, in terms of stability of exchange rate, in terms of prices, stability of prices, etc., etc. The economy was performing very, very well. And then signals started to show, which were negative. First, declining performance. Growth started to go down. 2, rapid population growth. 3, rapid urbanization. 4, an expansion of unemployment. 5, substantial decline in rural-urban balance and a disparity between regions. These were major problems. Particularly unemployment was a major problem. And because of these particular signals, and the economy was starting to go down a bit, then strategy had to change.
In recognition that over-centralization was hampering growth in rural towns, the Special Rural Development Program sought to promote the growth of rural centers to decentralize growth, markets, and job opportunities.
This Special Development Program worked, but there was no guarantee finances would be available. It was a good intention. The problem was how to mechanize it, how to make it happen. The Special Rural Development Program was a government-wide thing. It had no locus in the government. It was an initiative of government just to bring rural development. But it had no decision centers or power centers or control centers. Because there may be no adequate funds, not every corner of the country will get something. Not every deserving Kenyan will get something. And because even in the rural roads, for example, there was no formula to be used to say it is road in this area, this area, this area, with this formula. There was a lot of discretion. And the same money could be used just in one area, or in one region, or in one district, depending on who is, authorizing the money to be used. And that is where the failure to bring equity in the country arose from. That was a major weakness of that kind of an approach. As a program, it was a very good initiative because it targeted to bring both equity or balance in terms of development in the country, as well as generate jobs and other things out in the rural areas. So it was a very good program.
The Special Rural Development Program had fizzled out by the mid-70s. By the early 80s, Kenya's development outlook was bleak. A majority of Kenyans were worse off than in the early 70s. The gap between the poorest and the richest was also growing, creating regional and class inequality, insecurity, and potential conflict. The looming crisis spurred the creation of the District Focus for Rural Development, introduced in 1983.
The District Focus for Rural Development was a very good idea because it meant that more communities would be reached and would be served. That resources would also go to the communities. But District Focus was not devolution. District Focus was simply a way of increasing decision-making of field staff of government, what we call concentration. Okay, and consequently, it did not have as much impact on the ground, but a few achievements can be associated with it.
The emphasis was to bring regional balances so that each district would get certain amounts of money. And if you look, that is when districts were also started to do their own district plans, district development plans for the districts, because it was centered at the district. So the idea was to domicile it, rather than just living at a special rural development program, which had no standing in terms of administration.
Whereas the DFRD sought to transfer administrative responsibilities to the district level, central government retained tight control over all financial and political decisions.
A major weakness was dominance from above. A lot of decisions made by senior government people rather than the local people. Another one is that it was not established by law. It was an administrative measure, and consequently its success rested on the will of the senior people in government.
The excessive powers of the provincial administration in the DFRD demonstrated continued unwillingness by central government to cede power to local development units and ultimately contributed to its demise.
The real role of the provincial administration has been questionable, and the Bomas draft made it very clear that once the devolved government is established, the provincial administration would be wound up and give way to the devolved units, where you would have a governor at the district level, and which is even being recommended by the harmonized draft.
Alongside the Special Rural Development Program and DFRD decentralization programs, Kenya has always had a local government. Interestingly, none of the local development programs have been channeled through the local government. Instead, over the years, successive parliamentary reforms have reduced the powers and authority of local government.
1969, 1979, 1989, a lot of functions from local government were removed by the state to be given back to either parent ministries or established parallel authorities. This weakened the provision of services of local authority. We were not getting enough money first from the government, and also it was difficult to collect the revenue from the local authority, the local community, and that affected the kind of budgeting that we have. If you look at even the books of revenue, you can see the gap.
By the 90s, the economic and development situation in the country was desperate. The economy registered negative growth, collapse of local authorities, the DFRD was now defunct alongside growing poverty and reversals in development. In a desperate attempt to stimulate local development, the government has since adopted an unofficial policy favouring fiscal devolution. It has persistently ignored the reform needs of local government, opting instead to create cash transfer schemes, the creation of which has become a political tool.
Fiscal decentralization, whereas it's making an impact, it would be much more effective if it had a proper policy and was consolidated so that you don't have too much duplicity, so that it can be managed properly. So right now the policy we have is ad hoc. It's open to political manipulation, creation of a youth fund, women's fund. We knew they were created on the eve of the referendum, on the eve of the elections, just to win votes. That is not how you manage taxpayers' money. That's what's happening now. The policy we have, I would say, is terrible. We need to change.
The decentralization debate has also been coloured through ethnic politics in the emotive Majimbo debate. Might devolution in Kenya lead to ethnic division and secession of regions?
Devolution on its own does not lead to conflicts or violence in any part of the world. It has never done that. But I must admit that politicians virtually everywhere, especially naive politicians or politicians who do not know what devolution is, may want to mobilize people for violence, especially during times of political competition, and try to demonstrate that that competition and that violence that they are mobilizing is the result of devolution. In any way, in the whole country we have been experiencing one or the other form of devolution for the last 45 years or 47 years. And the kind of conflicts we have had in this country are not the result of devolution. Those conflicts are the result of poor mode of governance. Those conflicts we have had are the result of poor level playing ground during the times of political competition.
The ad hoc management and politicization of decentralization in Kenya are the key reasons undermining its success in the country. Tragically, the creation of over 13 funds has not corresponded with the creation of accountability structures. There is also no policy on the sector.
One of the great fears we have with the creation of a devolved structure, without the needed accountability structures, the needed policy to guide it, is you will have the problems that we have at the national level being transferred to the local level. You will have what is called elite capture, where you have only the political elite at the ground benefiting because you don't have proper citizen participation, your planning structures are not well organized, accountability is not well organized. So just saying that we'll put in the constitution devolution is not enough. It's a very good first step and we want that to happen. But we then need a very strong policy and very strong reform of the operational aspects of the funds. Otherwise, you will have re-centralization at the local level.
Everything starts from the grassroots. And without community involvement, there is no community participation. And if there is no community participation, then there is no need for having a project. Because that is how you will find that there are projects which were created and there is no service being rendered in that project because it has closed down as the community didn't see the need for that project.
Kwa CDF iko na ufisadi mingi kwa sababu wale watu wana appoint wale wanawakilisha huku nchini ni ma brothers, makazi na wake zao pia. Sasa inaonekana wale wanachagua wanakula nao pamoja.
Sasa projects ikisetiwa lazima mtu ajue ati ni project gani, kama ni kuweka stima ama kuweka maji ama kulipia basari. Yaani mtu ajue ni nini inafanywa. Anaweza enda a demand kwa sababu hiyo ni pesa, ni taxpayers money.
I hear there are funds for youth, there are funds for women, but I haven't seen it in my constituency. Maybe it is there and I don't know.
The government is giving out the resources, but because of mismanagement, it is not reaching the right places.
Kusipokuwa na social audit, wananchi hawatajua kwa sababu hawatakuwa na wale watu ambao wanafikia kule mashinani ili wakaweze kujua hii habari kuhusu pesa za CDF na za LATIF na hata za LASDAP. na pesa zingine pia.
Over 45 billion shillings was spent through local development funds in 2009 alone, corresponding to over 200 million shillings per constituency. Without the political will to reform the sector, millions will continue to be lost through corrupt means.
People who are in charge of primary schools, people in charge of churches, people in charge of secondary schools can steal public funds with impunity without being punished. It's not devolution that has done that, but it's the mode of governance that we have had in this country that has actually told people that there is prestige in stealing public funds as long as you are not punished, as long as we are not caught. So it's not devolution. In fact, an effective judicial system would undermine the root basis of corruption, because in every region people will be forced to put their public officers into accounting.
A 2010 study by the Social and Public Accountability Network in collaboration with the Kenya Human Rights Commission found that the funds are marked by similar challenges to those which killed the SRDP and the DFRD programs. Citizen participation remains poor, the funds suffer from low capacity, especially technical capacity, enforcement and accountability are weak, and the local implementation structures are also weak and easily manipulated by central government or parliament.
These research findings have indicated that everybody has a little money for water, a little money for health, a little money for roads. But the money is not put in one kitty to make a road.
Politicians are interfering too much in local development funds. Of course, the key complaint was against members of parliament and their interference in CDF, because they pick committees based on who they like, their political cronies, and from that point on, everything is done on a basis of patronage. Complaints about the councillor were equally high. We need a proper separation of powers. Let politicians be the legislators. Let them make the laws and do the oversight. Let the executive arm of government do the implementation.
The SPAN KHRC research stresses the need to fundamentally reform the sector, to develop strong regional government with a clear separation of powers between parliament and central government, the need to safeguard citizen participation, and the need for a strong national policy to guide the operational and transitional aspects of the local development sector.
This entire business of devolution will bring equity of some type. Equity in terms of regions, equity in terms of whatever units we are talking about, so that there is no advantaged region in this country.
The Committee of Experts Constitution Review process offers the opportunity to streamline local governance in Kenya through the creation of strong county governments.
The harmonized draft has actually also brought out the type of devolution we should have in Kenya. There are a few problems with the proposals that have been made by Bomas and the harmonized draft, but those could be attended to.
So, can devolution work in Kenya?
I think that's a pragmatic question, but equally the question is, how effective can the central government make it work? If it has the political will, devolution works in many countries.
Devolution has worked in India, devolution has worked in the US, devolution has worked in Nigeria, is being experimented with in Ethiopia. Devolution can work in Kenya.